Hello and a really big warm welcome to this presentation from the Urban Penguin. My name is Andrew Mallett and my question to you today is, do you want to build your own AI applications? And I'm sure the answer is yes. So we're going to look at building our own Python script to be able to query the OpenAI API. So come on, let's ditch ChatGPT and build our own applications. Oh man, maybe I was just exaggerating a little bit when I said we could ditch ChatGPT. Well, we can ditch ChatGPT, but we just want to go through and show how OpenAI can work and what we're trying to emulate within our own application. So I've just opened up ChatGPT here, but equally you could be using Bing Copilot or trying to use Gemini from Google. But we're going to go through and assign a role to the chatbot. So we're saying you need to act as a Linux instructor. You're teaching LPI and maybe the Linux Essentials course. We don't need to be too concerned about simple typos so long as it can understand what we're going on about. But that's now assigned a role to the chatbot. We're now acting as the user asking a question, and we can then specify, well, okay, Mr. Instructor, please can you give me maybe a sample question? So please, can you go through and generate a question based in maybe a multiple choice format on the objectives for the LPI Linux Essentials exam with one correct answer and 3 distractors. Now, I know I've got some typos there, but it's not really going to matter. And we can see then that it's generated a question and showed me the correct answer, which is correct as the date command. So this is good, but maybe we don't want to go into the front-end application each time. Maybe we even just want a question appearing each time we log into Linux. This could be put into our message of the day file to run Python and to go through and generate these questions. So that's what we're going to look at now. So having exaggerated a little bit about being able to ditch ChatGPT and gone straight into it, I'm going to give you a little bit of command line pleasure now as we go through out to the command line on my Raspberry Pi. Now I've organized a little bit of a directory structure here. I've just called it venv, and with Python we can create virtual environments. The great idea and feature of a virtual environment in Python is that each time we create a new virtual environment, it's a clean install of Python. So as I'm developing code and adding in packages and libraries, we don't need to overload the system Python environment. So it can be a really good way and a good feature of Python. So I'm going to run Python, and we might stick to Python 3 just to make sure it's running the right code. We're using the virtual environment module, and we're creating a new directory and virtual environment called GPT. This copies across a new interpreter and plain libraries. And before I activate it, if I go through and look at which Python interpreter I'm using the system Python, USR bin Python 3. If I then go through and activate my environment, and let's move into the GPT directory, or GPT, if I can spell that correctly, we can go through and use this as our working directory and read in from the bin subdirectory the activate script. We can see that it gives me a slightly different prompt. And now when I ask which Python am I using now, we're using the Python interpreter in the environment. And even if I use Python 3, we're still pointing then to the virtual environment path, which is really good because the first thing I'm going to do now is install an extra module. But this is not being installed into my system libraries. This is being installed into this isolated environment, keeping my main Python clean and fresh. If I needed it all of the time, then of course I would go through and put it into the system libraries. Now, it might have taken a little bit of time to install, but I just cut out a little bit of it, but it's only a few moments. The next step that we need to do is make sure that you log on to OpenAI, accessing your account inside of OpenAI rather than ChatGPT, and getting your OpenAI API key. It's this key that's going to authenticate your application to OpenAI. If you've got a new account, then you should get some free credits, but they will expire after a time. If they have expired, then just go through and purchase a few credits. It doesn't have to be expensive. If I go through and echo out my OpenAI API key, obviously I'm not going to echo this to the screen, but I've already exported this variable to my command line environment. So this is available to Python from an environment variable. But obviously keep this key secure and don't let other people access it, otherwise they'll be taking your credit. So now we get into the Python side of things. So we can go through and create ourselves a new Python script. We can create it at the command line, or you could go through and use PyCharm or Visual Studio Code, but there's not too much that we have to create. The first thing that we're going to do is from the OpenAI package that we've just installed, we're going to import the class OpenAI. And this is, of course, all case sensitive. We're going to create an instance of our class, and we're going to call that client. So client equals OpenAI, which is the class we've just used. I don't need to pass any parameters through to that, and it will be then using the exported OpenAI API key. So I just have to make sure that that's exported to my shell environment. But now I'm ready to start moving on with the code. Let me just quickly paste some in to save you painfully watching my typing. But you can see then we're creating a variable that we're calling completion, which uses then our client object, and then moving through to chat completions and create method. We're specifying the model to use. There are different models that we can use. I'm using GPT 3.5 Turbo, which is great for this type of activity and one of the cheaper models to use. But we could also use GPT-4 if we wanted to use a later model. But we have other models available too, such as Whisper and text-to-speech and DALL-E if we wanted to start working with images. Below the model, we have the messages list. And this is a list of dictionaries. And you can see that we're setting up the role to be the system. So setting up the behavior of the chatbot. And then we're setting up the role for the user, the question to be asked. So we have a list of 2 dictionaries. We close off our list and then we close off our create method. We can then go into an if statement to make sure that we have got a correct completion. So let's go through and see that we have choices. Choices will be a list of choices coming back. And if we have, we can go through then and set up a variable. I'm just calling it here generated underscore message equals completion. And we need to then move into our first choice, so choice is 0, and pull out the message from this. So having pulled out our message key, we've got a response. That's going to be stored inside our generated underscore message dot content. And we can then further pull this out and just call it content and have that assigned the value of the generated underscore message dot content. Now, the problem is with the content, it will print pretty much all on one line when we look at it within our Python environment. So we can then go through and format our content. And it is then a matter of replacing characters and making sure the new line is going to be read correctly. So we can have then our formatted underscore content equals content replace. And in this method, we're specifying the original content. And we're looking then for new lines. And we're going to replace it with a correct new line. I'm not going to display the way the content would look like, but we will have then the double \n, which isn't being interpreted. So we just want the /n to be the replaced content. So we get content on multiple lines, not all on one line. Now, I don't want to make a mistake of this. I've got a double M. I don't know if it's got a double T or not, but I'm going to leave that in. As long as I use that, we're going to be good to go. So now it's just a matter of printing my formatted content. So print, and let's make sure we can get in and print this. Formatted underscore content. And then make sure I've got the 2 T's. And I've got an extra parentheses. Let's remove the extra leading parentheses. And we're good to go. That's my if block. We could put another message in for else, just say that there was no completion generated, but I'm happy with this. And it looks like it's time to go through and test. So we can save our changes, move out to the command line, then run Python. And we can go through, run the Python script, and we can see then that we get which command is used to display the contents of a file within the terminal in Linux. So of course then that's going to be the cat command, and we have the correct answer and a little bit of explanation. Now remember, Linux Essentials is really the Linux Essentials. It's very entry level, but as we go through we can see different questions. Here we're saying, well, what command displays the current date and time? So that is the date command. I don't like the way they formatted the time command, but it kind of distracts a little bit, doesn't it? But let's run it one more time. Clear our screen, Control and L, run it again. And then which command is used to display the current disk usage on our Linux system? So we could use df for disk free and -h for human readable. So you can see then that we're getting that very entry-level Linux understanding questions coming back, but we've been able to do it directly from the command line without needing to jump into our ChatGPT front end. Command line is always better, but remember, if you want to look at the file, you can go through and just cat it out so we can see what's being done. I'll also try and add this through to the video description, which then reminds me, if you do like this video, then please like it, subscribe and share the video so that other people can also enjoy the content.
All that is left to say is thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this, then you are probably sadder than I first thought. For more of this drivel, please subscribe, like and comment to @TheUrbanPenguin.